August 1999. I'm still picture framing at Frame Art Galleries at their Strongsville location. I believe I'm still at the Strongsville location and reading a lot of different stuff. So let's jump right in and take a look at what I read in August of 1999. And the first book follows up the last two that I read in the previous month, and that's The Grail's Covenant, Book 3, To Dream of Dreamers Lost by David Niall Wilson. Uh, Obviously, book 3, final book in a trilogy where the vampire Montrevant is searching for the Holy Grail. This is a Dark Ages book. Everything comes to a head, and it leads into the trilogy of the Blood Curse, which will come up in a few months or next month. I don't know exactly. I could look, but why bother? Anyway, Vampire the Masquerade, White Wolf, or Vampire the Dark Ages, part of White Wolf, part of the Masquerade. It's fun stuff, and it's interesting to read vampires back in the Dark Ages. Next up, we have Feel This Book by Ben Stiller and Janine Garofalo, and this is a book about fulfilling your life and reaching your full potential and full sexual satisfaction. It's basically a spoof of self-help books written by two comedians who I find quite funny. And I thought the book was very, very funny. So there you go. I don't know what else to say about it. It's a funny book. Next, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Angel Chronicles, Volume 3 by Nancy Holder. This is a novelization of 3 episodes of Buffy that highlight the character of Angel, and I think 3 very good episodes. Oof. So, first we have a two-parter, Surprise and Innocence. And Surprise is Buffy's 17th birthday. Spike and Drusilla are putting together the judge to take out Buffy, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. This leads into a more important episode, Innocence, where after barely surviving an attack, Buffy and Angel, spoilers, there's going to be some spoilers here. Buffy and Angel have sex for the first time, which is creepy since she's just turned 17 and he's 140 years old at this point. I don't remember exactly. But this act of sexual congress leads to something terrible. And frankly, a character that's far more interesting than Angel. And then the third episode that's talked about in this book, Passion, has a couple of really wonderful things, essential hallmarks sort of Joss Whedon, who has fallen out of favor for various reasons. But there is, I'm trying not to spoil it in case you haven't seen it and are interested. You can ask me about it. If you're not going to watch it or read it and you want to know what's going on, you can ask me in the comments below. But there's a very surprising scene with I think a well-loved character, and then a scene that I absolutely love with that character-ish. But anyway, this is just a novelization of those 3 episodes, and they do highlight some great things with Angel. Next up, Flight of Eagles by Jack Higgins. And this is a story that takes place in World War II. And it's basically about 2 brothers who were separated when they were children. And now one is a pilot for the Germans and one is a pilot for the British. And but there's more going on, and they may have to reevaluate who they are, what they are. But it's good. World War II thriller action. I think Jack Higgins writes strong characters. So I dig it. Then we're like all over the place with genres and stuff. Then we have Flynn's Inn by Gregory MacDonald, one I have talked about before. Inspector Flynn with the Boston PD, I believe, uh, has been called out to this cabin. It's a men's gun club, but it's not really that. And there's been a murder of a congressman. And so Flynn, who isn't really a detective, he might be some sort of secret agent. They're weird books, but they're great. But he's been called in to figure out what's going on with this murdered congressman. Really, really interesting books. The Flynn series, from the writer. Did I say Gregory MacDonald? The writer of Fletch, but very different than Fletch. But and in my opinion, I like Fletch better. But that's just, I mean, Fletch is such a great character. Can I say Fletch more? But the Flynn books are a lot of fun. Then we have In the Blood by Nancy A. Collins. This is the follow up to Sunglasses After Dark, the Sonia Blue story. Sonia Blue is a vampire who's a vampire hunter. She's looking for the creature, the monster that turned her into a vampire. And in this, she's hooked up with a psychic detective, I believe. And there may be some vampire human romance, but she's like, but I'm a vampire, I can't do it. But it's good stuff. I like Nancy Collins' writing, and I like the Sonia Blue character. And so here you go. I should have checked, because I have one of these right over there in a pile of paperbacks, but I think it's Sunglasses After Dark, but I should have checked just to make sure. Anyway, it's In the Blood, Nancy A. Collins. Followed by The Wall of the Sky, The Wall of the Eye by Jonathan Lethem. It's a short story collection. I believe there's 7 stories in here, and they're all just weird Jonathan Lethem stories. There's one about a couple that collects, this is from Amazon, collects virtual reality corpses or copies of their former lovers, something like that. Lethem wrote Gun with Occasional Music, which I absolutely love. Amnesia Moon, and what's it? Motherless Brooklyn. That's the one. Motherless Brooklyn, a great book that was made into a movie that I haven't seen, but great author. Does some really wild stuff. So there you go. The Wall of the Sky, The Wall of the Eye by Jonathan Lethem. Now a classic, A Stir of Echoes by Richard Matheson. I believe I saw the movie before I read the book. The movie with Kevin Bacon. This is about a guy, I have to look at his name. Tom Wallace is our main character. I believe it's at a party where he has some sort of accident and essentially gains psychic powers. He can hear people's thoughts. Telepathy, I guess you would call it. But he starts hearing the dead speaking to him. It's a really, really creepy book. And I think the movie was pretty creepy too. But it's Richard Matheson. I mean, the man's a master. A Stir of Echoes. Fantastic book, highly recommended. And check out the movie if you haven't seen it. All right, now this book I do have a copy of, but I did not get it. It is under like 30 other books. I didn't feel like pulling it out. This is The Hunter by Richard Stark. It's the first of the Parker books. I've talked about it before because I've read it a number of times. It's Parker, a thief, and in this book, this isn't a spoiler because it's the very first thing that happens in the book. He, his wife, and a partner have pulled off a job, and he's betrayed by his wife and his partner, shot, left for dead, and this is his revenge tale. They took his money, they almost took his life. He's going after him. Fantastic book, fantastic beginning to a fantastic series. I was hoping to come up with another way to throw fantastic in there just to make it 4, because, you know, Fantastic Four, and I'm a geek. And it would have been fun, but I couldn't come up with another way to do it. Finally, the last book. I forgot to say that was the penultimate book. I always like to say that. The last book that I read in August of 1999 is Star Wars X-Wing Wraith Squadron by Aaron Alston. I feel like this is the first book in this X-Wing series that wasn't written by Michael A. Stackpole, but I may not be correct about that. I didn't bother to look it up or anything. But you got Wedge Antilles, and he's putting together the covert X-Wing squadron, the Wraith squadron. He's taken the dregs and the washouts of other squadrons. But before he can complete their training, their base is attacked, and so they have to take off, and they commandeer an Imperial starship to go after the general or whomever that the Imperial general or whomever that attacked them. And so it's just, I like these stories that branch off, that don't deal with the main characters of the Star Wars universe. You know, the Skywalkers and the Solos. Not that I have anything against them, but I like to see these other stories that are taking place. And I like the X-Wing is one of my top two favorite spaceships that there is. The Viper from the original Battlestar Galactica is the other one. And I like covert type of stuff, so this is a fun series. And it's a fun book. But that's it. That is what I read in August of 1999. I think that's a pretty eclectic group. There's a few vampire things in there. There's at least 3 vampire things, but there's thrillers and science fiction and mysteries and horror and crime. All sorts of stuff. So, my question for this video, let's make it real simple. Are you a fan of Richard Matheson? And if so, what's your favorite Richard Matheson book? This is a difficult question for me because I think nostalgia plays a big part in it. I could say his short story collections, the earliest versions that I had, and I really wish I had copies of these. Shock or Shock 1. I don't remember if the first one had a number, and then Shock 2, Shock 3, with just, excuse me, classic Richard Matheson short stories, some that were adapted into Twilight Zone episodes, different things. But then if I'm going to go with novels, I mean, his horror novels are fantastic, but I absolutely love the movie Somewhere in Time, which is based on his novel Bid Time Return, which is essentially a time travel romance, but it's so good, both the book and the movie. I mean, it's difficult to choose. You've got The Shrinking Man and I Am Legend, just a classic vampire novel. Stir of Echoes, super creepy. I'm probably forgetting tons of stuff. The Legend of Hell House. Is the book called The Legend of Hell House? The movie's just Hell House? I don't remember. There's a new edition of it coming out from Tor Nightfire, and even though I have a paperback copy, I think I'm going to get the Tor Nightfire edition, and then I can pass the paperback to my nephew. But that's a fantastic book. So, ugh. I was going to say I'll just pick one of the Shock books, but I don't remember which stories are in which books, so I can't say which is my favorite. Should I go with Bid Time Return? I love that book, and it's weird that it's not one of his horror novels. And his westerns are good. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna take a stand. I'm gonna say Bid Time Return, and I don't even own a copy of it because I'm trying to find a copy that says Bid Time Return and doesn't have a movie cover. I may have to give in and get a Somewhere in Time copy. But anyway, that's my answer. There you go. But what about you? Are you a fan of Richard Matheson? What is your favorite Richard Matheson? Man, I could just Trilogy of Terror. The Zuni doll part of Trilogy of Terror is just an amazing bit of cinema. Um, he wrote so many great screenplays, so many great things that were adapted into movies. I have a book. I don't remember the title of it. That's an anthology, basically a tribute anthology where people either write sequels to his stories or stories inspired by different things. Jeff Strand's story was fantastic. That's the one I remember the most. But and I think that's the book that has the is it Stephen King and Joe Hill wrote a spiritual sequel to Duel. I think that's the book that originally appeared in. But anyway, all right, I could talk Richard Matheson for a long, long time, but let me know what you think in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. If you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. And my Blue Sky is @EL Smith. That's all I have for you this week. So until next week, read more books.